Hello, this is Lenny Vermoss, and I wanted to provide you with a overview of the analytic data that you are going to be receiving by email. And I thought that this would be a lot easier than trying to explain it. I went over some of this at the training that we had. But first of all, there's going to be kind of four parts to this. The first part will be a little bit about analytic scoring, just to kind of review for you. The second part talks about the cut scores. The third part, I'll actually show you some of the documents that you'll be receiving. And then at the very end, for some of you that might be interested in venturing into changing some of your scores, I'll provide information how to do that on the video. First of all, just to review, remember that the composite scores are weighted, and the scores for the composite are weighted according to what the state does. The cut scores for the composite score that the state uses are broken into three categories: exceeds, meets, and below. For our purposes, we divided the below into two categories: those that are kind of closer to meeting and those that are quite a ways below. And we use the term bubble and oh no for those students. The numbers that we used are the same as what the state used. Individual cut scores, this is pretty arbitrary, but what we did is just divide those up into those same four categories. And these might be a little bit high by looking, but we thought that it does provide you a little bit of information about the different traits that are scored and where the students are. Just one final reminder on the spreadsheet types in the documents. AS stands for analytic scoring, and that contains the data that we did as a group. So it gives you comparisons between your school and the schools that were scored by the ESU, and then the demographics of only male and female. The other one, the data analyzer, has only your school data, and it provides information about how your school did, and also then with any of the demographics that you provided, whether that be free and reduced lunch, sped students, or even some special categories that you set up. This is an example of the documents that you will receive in an email. You're going to receive 7 documents. Notice that you have 2 spreadsheets, which are in the green. These are Excel, and more than likely you won't look at the spreadsheets, but you are going to receive 5 PDFs. And PDFs I found are a lot easier to scroll through and look at. And again, note the difference. AS means for analytic scoring, so that's comparing your school to other schools that were scored. And then DA is the data analyzer, which is looking at data just from your school. And I'm just going to go down the list here to show you what's included with each of these. Class list, I'm just going to open this up. And I may need to adjust the size of it, so I'm going to adjust it to 100%. Basically, what this provides is the information for all of your students, and each one's a little bit different. What I do like about this one is it has all of the individual scores, as well as the sum of the first and second scores, as well as a composite score, and then the ranking according to the cut scores that NDE uses. So this is going to be either below, meets, or exceeds. And so you can look over here very quickly. This might be something that you can use if you're recording the scores or using the scores, or as kind of a summary of the scores that you get. The graphs one, okay, again with analytic scoring, what the graphs does is it provides you with a comparison of how the schools within how your school did to comparison the schools are scored. So notice it right here. Here's the schools that participated at this grade level. This is for Sumtown, and this is 5th grade. You do get tables if you're interested, but I always think that charts are a lot easier to look at. So the first chart that we have is a comparison between how the students in Sumtown compared to the ESU. And so you have the data that's there, and you have the average trait score for each one. And then in case you wanted a graph just of your own school, this is your own school. Sometimes you can see, in this case, it's easy to see that sentence fluency for Sumtown was very good, and ideas and content probably need a little bit of work. And then here's a distribution of the scores in 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, so you can kind of see where your students are at with that. And then The next one is composite scores. So here's the average composite scores for ESU 6. Again, comparing males and females. That's the only thing we do with analytic scoring. And then you also get some comparison between males and females in ESU 6 and then also in your school. And so just provides a lot of information about how your students did as well as compared to those within ESU. The data analyzer, the one that I really like is color coding. I'm going to take a little bit of time. I really like the things that this shows. And basically, there's a lot of information here. So it's color coded. So I love the color coding very quickly to see where students are at. Again, the cut scores used are the ones used by the state. Blue is exceeds, green is meets, and then yellow and red are below. And as I said earlier, we divided this into two categories. The yellow are close to being there, and the red are quite a ways behind. It does give you an average score for each trait, so you can see how your students scored on each trait. That would be out of 4, so it's a little easier to interpret. And then the weighted score is out of 32, and it gives you an average weighted composite score. Here's the cut scores that were used. Again, this is what the state used for cut scores. These are kind of arbitrary and set up by visiting with some of the other teachers and kind of coming up just with some numbers. This is how it affects your score. And then this is your weighted total right here. So I think it's easy to see. What I really like about the color coding is it quickly allows you to see where your students are at in areas of concern. I do think that maybe the color coding for the traits, individual traits, might be a little high, but I think it does help to provide that information. And then it does provide some graphs for your school. The first one we're going to look at is demo by test. And demo stands for demographics. So what this does is it provides information. There's always, again, a chart, but we're going to flip down here to the first graph. And what you see is this is demographics, all the demographics you provided for traits. So this is for the trait ideas. And you can compare students. Here's male compared to female. The numbers in each category are there. SPED, non-SPED, free and reduced lunch, anything that you provided. Now, if you just have a single graph, that means you didn't provide any demographics there. So it's not in that demographic information that's provided. But then here's ones for organization. There's for sentence fluency. And then here's one for composite. So for each of those traits that we had, you get all of your demographics. So that's demo by test. The other one that we have is called trend by demo. And basically what this one does is it looks at each of the traits that you have and gives you a score for all students. And then the next one would be for males, and then it just compares down. So you can look at each of the traits and compare how the males did on each of the traits. Females and any of the subgroups you provided. And once again, when you're looking at any of the subgroups you provided, you might want to add some more information. So this next part is really just if you want to change some information in the spreadsheet. First of all, I would say if you want to, don't be afraid to contact me. I would be more than happy to come and help you with the spreadsheet part of this. I also want to thank Matt from Norris for kind of helping with this and kind of doing some nice enhancements for this that we worked on. So the next part, I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet and I just want to talk a little bit about how you might look at information. And I'm going to move this over and I'm going to manipulate this just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. Where you want to make your changes at are on this analytic scoring data. So what I do is all the information comes from this sheet here. So if you want to notice that this school has free and reduced lunch here, but they don't have any extra categories. So if you wanted to make some extra categories here, this is where you would make the changes. So you could just put some Y's in here, and then when you make those changes, they'll show up on the graphs. So any changes in adding demographics would be done on this AS data sheet. And then if you want to make changes in the cut scores, the calculations are done on this page, and this looks pretty complicated. But if you want to change any of the cut scores, for example, I said these might be a little bit high. If you want to change those to lower, you can do that. It's also a possibility, if you wanted to, that you could add some more data over here. So again, going back to this sheet, there are places for up to 10 tests. We just use 5, so if you wanted to add some more scores here from another assessment, you can do that. Thank you very much, and once again, I hope you find this helpful, but if you have any questions, feel free to contact me or Jill, and we'd be more than happy to work with you. Thank you.